Good afternoon, I am Precious Nzeya Sakaleji. Welcome to Camnet TV Midday News. The headlines. Health Minister SYLVIA MASEBO attributes debate on shortages of drugs to the opposition. Government to systematically clean up the civil services, VEEP. Join me with the details after this commercial.
Team, the trajectory of the business looks very positive, and it looks like we'll be able to launch the ministry.
There's so much data.
Mom?
Yes, baby?
It says here, global warming and climate change is caused by the pollution from careless activities of human beings.
Wow!
Son, do you know I can turn my phone into a TV remote?
How's that possible?
It's so easy. Check this out.
Be smart, be fast with mega data from Zamtel. Get your 15 GB mobile data for only 100 kwacha, 30 GB mobile data for only 200 kwacha, and your 70 GB LTE data bundle with free Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Visit our Facebook page, website, or service centers countrywide for more information. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
In other media news in detail, United Party for National Development Kamwala Ward 5 Councillor Mahinda Simata has admitted before the Lusaka High Court that he appeared on various media platforms including Camnet, where he alleged that Opposition Patriotic Front acting president Given Lubinda is using his foundation to deprive the community a skills center in Kamwala, Lusaka. Mr. Simata, who has been sued in the Lusaka High Court by Given Lubinda Foundation Limited for allegedly interfering on a skills training center in Kamwala, states that the plaintiff will not suffer irreparable damages if the case is disposed of, as the said property is a training center.
The issue surrounding the Kamwala Community Skills Center seem not to be ending anytime soon, as United Party for National Development Kamwala Ward 5 Councillor Mahinda Simata respond to a lawsuit made against him by Opposition Patriotic Front acting president Given Lubinda through his foundation called Given Lubinda Foundation Limited. In his affidavit in opposition, Mr. Simata tells the High Court that Mr. Lubinda illegally occupied the land in question and still maintains his assertions. He further disclosed that it is not in dispute he appeared on various media platforms, among them Camnet TV, in his position as councillor, and was speaking on behalf of the people who lodged a complaint against the former Kawata Member of Parliament on how he used his influence at the time he was the area Member of Parliament and Minister to illegally acquire the Skills Centre, a property he says belongs to the community, thereby depriving them. In this lawsuit, Mr. Lubinda, through his foundation, has sued Mr. Simata seeking an injunction preventing him from interfering with his peaceful and quiet enjoyment of the land in question in Kamwala, Lusaka. Mr. Lubinda, through his foundation Given Lubinda Foundation Limited, is also seeking the Lusaka's High Court's order of injunction and damages for inconvenience, among other reliefs. In its statement of claim, the foundation stated that the core business was supporting vulnerable people through projects, scholarship campaign for children, and women's right, skills training and development, and that it had made a contract with the Lusaka City Council on the said stand plot number in Kamwala South up to August 31st, 2023. But in his affidavit in opposition, Mr. Simata has denied interfering on the said property as alleged by the foundation. Mr. Simata has also told the Lusaka High Court that the plaintiff has not shown any evidence of the damages he claims to have suffered, adding that this case violates the rules of the court as they amount to a prayer and not facts, hence should be dismissed with cost. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
In other news, Lands and Natural Resources Minister Elijah Mchima says the national land policy needs to be reviewed in conformity to current demands. In the year 2021, the Patriotic Front launched the National Land Policy, which stakeholders described as a milestone, given that Zambia had had a national land policy since its independence. The minister has, however, noted the need to engage traditional leaders so that they can surrender some portion of land to the state and resolve some of the land challenges. Meanwhile, Mr. Mchima reiterates that corruption at the Ministry of Lands remains top on his agenda while he serves as minister.
Issues. The land policy, we need to review it. We need to review the land policy. We see a new direction. As I said, there are some pieces of land that are sitting with mine houses. There are some pieces of land that needs to come back to the government through the Ministry of Land so that it can be allocated to the demands of the people. The population has increased. The population has increased, and as we are saying, God has stopped creating land. We will never create any more land. We need to utilize the little that is with us, and also we need to liaise with the local traditional rulers so that they can exercise some more pieces of land to the ministry for allocation. And we need to be prudent and transparent when we are allocating this land through the councils. Councils are agents of the Ministry of Lands. Ministry of Lands is the principal owner of land in whatever category, whether there is mining, there is what, there is this Ministry of Lands on behalf of the President. And the President is the custodian of all land in Zambia.
Minister of Health SYLVIA MASEBO has alleged that the reported shortage of medicines in the country is political. Ms. Masebo, who spoke at a media briefing in Lusaka Friday, says her ministry will continue to stabilize the supply of medicines in the country, even though it will take some time. Meanwhile, Ministry of Finance has indicated that it has released a total of 867 million kwacha in January and February 2022 for the procurement of drugs and medical supplies.
Information obtained from the Ministry of Finance has indicated that a sum of 217 million kwacha was released to the Ministry of Health in January 2022 for the procurements of drug and medical supplies. A further 650 million kwacha was released in February 2022 for the procurement of the same. This brings the total amount of resources released for the procurements of drugs and medical supplies to 8,607 million kwacha in 2 months. The recent reported shortage of medicines in the country, however, raises more questions than answers, such as what has happened with the 867 million kwacha released for the procurement of drugs. Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Administration Dr. George Mangwende, when asked, has explained that all the resources were channeled to ZAMSA, which has the mandate to procure drugs.
Yes, indeed, the money was released and the money moved to ZAMSA, which is our procuring entity when it comes to drugs. You might be aware, ladies and gentlemen, that ZAMSA has been procuring medications, and a specific day in point is yesterday. Amongst the other procurements that we were doing, yesterday we did quite a huge procurement from a named contractor.
Meanwhile, Health Minister SYLVIA MASEBO says the reported shortage of medicines is political and that her ministry will continue to stabilize the supply of medicines in the country, even though this will take some time.
Whilst in some facilities the availability of drugs may be low, he also knows that in some facilities it is not an issue. And this halabaloo is all political in most cases. And I'm also happy to say that we shall continue to stabilize the supply of drugs in this country.
And the minister says typhoid outbreak was reported in Mbala district and has urged citizens to ensure that they boil their drinking water, avoid eating cold foods, and take precaution not to contract typhoid.
People with symptoms of fever should report to the nearest healthcare facility. 2, everyone should continually observe personal and community hygiene to avoid possible spread of the infection. 3. Everyone ought to be careful and sure of the source of their drinking water. It is important to boil water for drinking or treat it with chlorine.
And Minister of Science and Technology Felix Mutati says his ministry has come up with a technology aimed at tracking the movements of drugs from the point of procurement to the point of entry and distribution in the country.
This is a very important tracking mechanism where we shall know that a Panadol manufactured in Egypt arrived in Zambia with a QR code, delivered at our medical stores, and wherever it's been distributed, it will be identified.
The health minister also took time to update the media on the COVID-19 situation in the country, where she has reported that one COVID-19 death was recorded in the last 24 hours and has encouraged members of the public to not drop their guard but continue adhering to the COVID-19 guidelines. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
In other news, Vice President Mtali Nalmango says the UPND administration will clean up the civil service on a case-by-case basis to avoid accused of political prosecution. Thus, she says the United Party for National Development Administration will not replace Patriotic Front cadres with the United Party for National Development cadres, but will make recruitments professionally. The Vice President says people are entitled to belong to any political party as long as it does not conflict with their professional duties. They will not be fired. She made the remarks during the Vice President question and answer session in Parliament. In the meantime, Mrs. Nalmango has expressed optimism that the Financial Crimes Court will achieve conviction in cases before it, despite the complexity of these crimes. According to the Vice President, as of 24th March 2022, 8 cases were before the Financial Crimes Court, which was recently established to prosecute financial crimes.
Professionals in those positions. And whether we say they are UPND sympathizers, they must be professional. That is number one. That is the criteria for employment. It should not be a cadre who goes there to perform politics and who runs away after elections. Since elections, you have been gone. Such a person, I'm standing in the people's house, must be removed now because he has failed to perform. It's because he knows his own history. And such should not be attributed. And tomorrow, that one, we will say persecution. That is not persecution, that is simply failure. And therefore, when we are saying, when are we going to clean up the civil service, it has to be case by case. And on sincere failure, not witch hunt. On sincere failure, that one must go. We want to have a proper public service full of professionals. That is what we are going to do as
Well, that news item brings us to the end of Camnet TV Midday News, but before we go, here are the headlines once again. Health Minister SYLVIA MASEBO attributes debate on shortage of drugs to the opposition. Government to systematically clean up the civil services. VEEP. Thank you for watching. I am Precious Nzea Sakaleji. Good afternoon.